park is very important to the community, especially it's significant to the community because it also tells the story of the immigration of the Chinese to Canada. These were early Chinese pioneers, all contributors to the Chinatown community, going from the early 1900s through to current date. But most of these are original Chinese families that came before the Exclusion Act and after the Exclusion Act. It is a story that should be told not only to the Caucasian community, but it's interesting to note that maybe the new immigrant Chinese should also know about the struggle that was required to establish the Chinese community across Canada, and what relative significance did the early Chinese pioneer have to the making of Canada.
Well, actually, when he first became involved was, I remember, 1968, and that was just the very beginning of Ray becoming involved in this Chinese community. And he just became very, very passionate about it and has been involved ever since.
Ray was the one who was there to start the Senlock Society that really brought together a great group of people in the Chinese community to fight the destruction of Chinatown.
There was a plan in the late 60s to basically, it would have wiped out Chinatown as we know it today. And what the city wanted to do is they wanted to build what they called it was a project to build a roadway, major roadway connecting downtown to the outskirts, and it was called the Downtown Penetrator. And City Hall was hell-bent on doing this, and they didn't care what the community said about it.
So we were relatively successful in actually having Chinatown designated, and actually it was the only city in Canada at that time that designated a downtown Chinese community in Canada.
And then if you look at the kinds of things that he's been involved with in terms of causes, as an example, his work on dealing with the head tax and redress for the head tax is something that, garnered a great deal of attention nationwide.
And what this group was trying to do is they were trying to achieve an official parliamentary apology from the Prime Minister for over 62 years of legislated racism against Chinese in Canada. And this, the 62 years was, it comprised the head tax era from 1885 to 1923, and then from 1923 onward to 1947 when the Canadian government implemented the Chinese Exclusion Act, which basically put a stop to all Chinese immigration to Canada during those years.
It should be just an honest apology for the wrongdoings of what the previous governments had done in terms of Exclusion Act. To my way of thinking, the head tax was not ever much of a deterrent for immigration. It was the Exclusion Act that was really the nail in the coffin for Chinese immigration.
Therefore, Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the people and government of Canada, we offer a full apology to Chinese Canadians for the head tax and express our deepest sorrow for the subsequent exclusion of Chinese immigrants. Gana Dai Dohi.
Securing the apology from the Prime Minister, from the government of Canada, from the people of Canada, that all the things that you went through in Canada's history were worth it, that you were finally vindicated, that the old people that are still around could have their dignity restored.
And of course, one of the high watermarks, I think, for Ray was being a citizenship court judge. I think this is you couldn't pick somebody better for that, to introduce and welcome new people as they come to Canada and let them know what their responsibilities and what their rights are as Canadians. You couldn't ask for a better person than Ray Lee to fulfill that kind of a role.
When he was made a citizenship judge, he took it to heart. He didn't see this as sort of as, a patronage appointment. He sat down, thought for a while, and thought, how am I going to make this work for me? How am I going to make it work for other people? How am I going to bring value to Canadian citizenship?
Well, I probably in the 3-year period swore in excess of 40,000 Canadians in Calgary and Southern Alberta. Some very interesting stories about new immigrants.
He loved meeting the people from the other countries and see them try to assimilate into the Canadian family.
In fact, I was on the C train the other day. I was coming back from downtown, and I sat down, and a lady came up and sat across from me, and she had on the traditional Muslim headdress. And she kept looking at me, and she says, "Judge Lee." I said, "Yes." She says, "You swore me in 3 years ago as a citizen." And then we started chatting. It was just how are you doing now? And it was a great conversation.
I remember seeing him at the occasional ceremony that I was able to attend. That, in the background, people would be saying, or all the organizers would be saying, now, don't shake everybody's hands. There's SARS, there's this, there's that. They may not want to shake hands with you, whatever. We got to be out of here by this time. He says, to hell with all those people. He says, these people are here. If they want to shake my hand, if they want to talk with me while I'm giving them their citizenship, let's let it happen. It's got to be a special thing.
I penned the phrase that we as citizenship judges do a very good job of making citizens, but we do not a very good job of convincing people that they should be Canadians. And that's what I tried to do for 3 years, is try to influence the new Canadians that they have to become Canadians. They must learn the Canadian ways. They must not ever forget their past or their ethnic origins, but in the end they must learn to pick up Canadian ideas and Canadian history and so on and so forth.
I think Ray has communicated with a lot of people. How important community is and how important it is to be a part of it, to make it a better place for everybody.
I think that if you care about people and you are committed to helping them, you can do great things to make your community a better place than when you came into it. And Ray's done that, and I admire it a lot.
And we often wonder, what impact do we have? What legacy do we leave? Is there anything that, I can look back on my life and say that I did for my community? Maybe the history books won't record the name, Raymond Lee did this, my father. But he knows in his heart what he did, and he's happy with that.
Well, I think, as Canadian citizens, I think we have to appreciate our country more. We have to understand it more. And I would like to, from my judge's point of view, citizenship judge's point of view, I'd like to remind everybody who has immigrated to Canada, which is virtually everybody, that what our country has done for you.